since 2014, that's over $25 million. And that, of course, in addition to that, there's been about $9.1 million in match, which is significant and needs to be recognized also. 173 projects. So of course we keep adding to that every year. Here's just kind of another way to look at it. This is the breakdown of all the numbers, but you could see this column shows the SISMA funding over time since 2014. Throughout the years, that's changed a little bit on how the money's kind of distributed to the SISMAs, but the last couple years has been pretty solid with the core funding. Learning over time how to kind of manage these funds and the best way to be efficient with them and get them out the door to you folks. Priority projects are listed in this column. So those are really projects that are different than the core funding for the priority projects that are listed in the handbook. And then of course, total funding, the first year we put out a little bit more than 3.6 due to the nature of the timing of that, but you could see our 3.6 here every year. So what's new in MISGP? So I updated the progress report form with a lot of good input from Ryan and Christina at the DNR, the technical contacts for the SISMAs. And the idea is to streamline that form a little bit, really just get to the nitty gritty of what we need to know. So I hope that in this last reporting period that was helpful to you. I did receive some feedback from folks that in general, it sounded like it was. And as part of that process, making sure that as myself and the technical contacts that we're providing some feedback to you all. I think it's important that we, have that two-way communication. So that's something that I've made as a priority for our program is to just have a little bit more kind of feedback in that sense. So, a big thanks to Ryan and Christina. It's a heavy lift to review those reports and to get those comments and feedback back out to you folks. But it's definitely something that's worth it. And then, of course, the biggest change that we've had is my grants. The 2021 grant application cycle moved into the online system. And I'm going to go over a couple things on that to just show you kind of where we're at with that. We did a survey to all the applicants that had completed the online application to get their feedback. And I appreciate you taking the time to fill out that survey. And we're really using that information to make improvements. So some of the feedback we received is that it was helpful. It was all getting away from the workbooks and the Excel sheets and the emails. So overall, the efficiency, I think, was there. I think it was recognized. And I think that was helpful for folks. The application components were all in one place. That was something that people had commented on. It was nice to have everything like spot where they could go there and check in on where they were with the application, and it was all in one location. And then the ability for different folks to be working on the application. So the fiduciary or the SISMA coordinator or a different staff member, folks were able to get in there and work at it kind of on their own pace without having to, shared files or that type of a thing.
Hey, Erin, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You might want to try shutting your camera off. We're getting a few audio drops once in a while. Your audio cuts out or you're freezing. Not a ton, but a little bit. So yeah, maybe without your camera on.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Just let me know if it gets worse. And I can try to switch here. So another item that we received feedback on that was positive is that the error checks in the system were helpful. So, as you know, when you're filling out the application, if a section wasn't filled out correctly or if an upload was missing or something like that, the system prompted you to do that. So I think that was helpful for folks to, it was kind of like an internal error in the system that helps make sure that your application is complete. And that also reduces like back and forth through the administrative completeness process after the applications are submitted. So some things that we can improve on though, and that we will be working on for the next round, we need to have a designated section in the application for letters of support and for resumes and qualifications. And then we also need an area for maps and figures throughout the application, and then specifically in survey and treatment section. So, and then we did receive some feedback too on the budget summary page on the layout of that. So those changes are already being implemented, and I'm working with our system administrator for the next round of applications. So we're already making those improvements in the system. And I guess I'll just, kind of say that it's going to get better every year. So, the more we learn in the system, the more we work in there, the more we see what we need or what might be missing, we'll continue to make those improvements on a regular basis. So this slide shows some of those survey results in a little bit more of a graphic form. I did the little star rating here. Out of all the folks that filled out the survey, we had about 3.7 was our star. So I think that's pretty good for our first round working in here. So, and then you can see here, I've listed what the types of training materials that we had. So there was the My Grants training materials that were right in the system. And then our priority projects webinar that Joanne led, the SISMA presentation that I led, our handbook, and then, just being able to contact program staff, whether that was your technical contact or myself, that kind of a thing. So about 75% of the respondents said that was very helpful to them. And then about 42% of folks said that the handbook was very helpful to them as well. So that's good information for us and materials moving forward. Are you guys hearing me okay? Is it working?
Yeah, Erin, for the most part, there's a couple of drops, but I think we're getting all the information. It's maybe 1 or 2 second drops at a time. You're doing fine.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is really my last slide before we jump into questions. So get those ready. But so next steps. So the 2021 awards are going to be announced in early March. We're moving through the scoring phases of those applications right now. And as we move forward with those award announcements, everything will happen in the My Grants system. So the project agreements will generate in My Grants, and we'll do the signatures right in the system as well. And then moving through the actual grant implementation will all be also done in My Grants. So the procurement procedures, which we call in the system, it's called plans, specifications, and bids. And then all of our deliverable tracking, progress reporting, reimbursements, everything will be done directly in My Grants. And I'll be providing training materials and resources. I'm working really hard right now with our system administrator on the final development stages of the grant itself, and then we'll be testing that and have that ready for the rollout in March. So just know that we're going all in as me and the system administrator have been saying. So it's going to be a process, but we're going to work through it, and I think it'll be it's a great improvement to the program. The 2022 requests for proposals are expected. The RFP is expected to be released on September 1st, and applications due November 1st. And then, like I mentioned, we are doing enhancements to the system based on feedback that we're receiving. So you'll see some of those changes in the 2022 RFP process. So that was pretty much kind of my quick and dirty update there. And then, like I said, I really wanted to have some time for questions that anybody might have for me, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Yeah, we've got about 15 minutes. So folks, if you want to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or use the chat, any one of those will work for us.
Natalie?
How are
Yeah,
you?
hi, Erin. I'm sorry if you already said this. I came in a little bit late,
Yeah.
but so if we already hold existing MISGP grants, will those be switching over to this new system as well, or will those stay with the old system?
That's a great question, Natalie. And
I don't
no.
know.
So
Yeah, but I'm not paying attention to it, so
okay, I think
pay attention to the dog and the kids.
somebody is not
Yeah,
muted. So
looks like it was Michelle. We got her muted now.
okay, thanks. So yeah, that's a great question. And no, so if your existing grant is outside of the system, and we're doing that with the Excel workbooks and the paper forms and that kind of a thing, those will finish in that form. So only the 2021 awards that were applied for in the system will then move throughout the My Grant system. So basically, wherever your grant is, your existing grants stay outside of the system. And it's because it's just too much, and I think it's too confusing for all of us too to try to put in partial grants, or they're all in different spots a little bit. So
It looks like Vicky has a question. Vicky, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the place to ask this, but in the workbook, whatever, the instruction book, whatever, it said you guys are announcing the 2021 awards in March. And I'm wondering, is that like for real? Because that's not the best time for us to get the best seasonals if we are awarded a project where we need some seasonals. So I don't know if there's any chance of coercing you guys to make that somehow happen in February.
yeah, that's a great question, Vicki. And we've heard that, from a couple of folks, and we heard that last round also. And so we're thoughtful of that. We're hoping that it can be, an early as March as possible. I'll say March to be safe, but if we can get it towards the end of February, then we'll do that. That's of course my top priority at that time in the process, is to get those award announcements out once the funding recommendations, are approved by our synthesis team and then the directors. So I understand that, kind of that time constraint that puts on you folks. My suggestion is to kind of have everything ready to go with an announcement and a position description and that type of a thing, so that right when we get the awards, that could be announced through your organization. One more point on that is that you cannot incur any costs associated with the grant until that project agreement is signed. So while you can go through the process of getting someone on board, they couldn't essentially be like being paid time-wise until that project agreement is signed and fully executed, which doing it in the system is going to streamline that, so that it's literally going to make that process much more efficient. So hopefully that can happen sooner than me manually generating those project agreements, which takes, that it's pretty labor intensive to essentially create every single one of those manually. The My Grant system allows us to enter certain amounts in certain parts of the system, and with a click of a button, that PDF project agreement is generated. So that process will be quicker.
We've still got maybe 10 minutes here if folks have other MISGP related questions. Maybe Alyssa, I see you're unmuted. Do you have a question? Again, feel free to use the chat if you'd rather drop a question in the chat. We'll get those too.
And yeah, I mean, if you think of something later, this morning or whatever, I will of course be attending all morning, so I can monitor the chat too and answer those questions as they come up. If nobody has anything right now, I'll just, I guess I'll just want to say that, I appreciate all of you like answering the survey on my grants and kind of the willingness to dive into this with a attitude. So I know it's a big change, but I really think after we get in there and you're used to the system and we move through it, that it is an improvement to the program. So we're always looking for ways to improve. So when you think of something, anytime, shoot me an email, give me a call. I really look at us as a team in this process. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here and happy to help with anything that I can.
So we've got another question from Shelby Bauer in the chat, Erin. Can we expect the 2022 progress report due dates to be different this year than the 2022 application due date?
So the progress report dates, because they are listed in the project agreements, will remain October 30th. And I know that that can be a bit of a crunch, and I recognize that. I would just add that those progress reports can be submitted earlier. We know that that date's coming up, so you can submit them at earlier than October 30th. That's always an option. Or we provided quite a bit of flexibility this year. If people need an extra week to get in their progress report, that's not a big deal. Just contact your technical contact and myself and just say, hey, I'm going to need an extra week on my progress report. That's not a big deal. So we're trying to work with that, and streamlining the form was also something that we wanted to do to help with that process. So I get it. I hear that it's a bit of a crunch, and I'm processing and saving those progress reports and that kind of a thing too. So that's a busy time for all of us. And again, moving into the online system, hopefully that's a little bit more streamlined as we move forward through time as well.